We're going to bring you to some spectacular lakes and mountain trails today with our guide Ben from Brewster Tours.
Okay, once again, good morning. We're on our way, leaving Banff behind and making our way towards Lake Louise via Johnston Canyon. There at Johnston Canyon, we have the opportunity of doing a beautiful nature walk. Those of you who wish to do it, up the Johnston's Creek. From there, we'll go on to Castle Mountain, get a picture of it, and up to Moraine Lake for our lunch. And then after lunch into Lake Louise, and see the gem of the Canadian Rockies. And after Lake Louise, we'll go into British Columbia, to Yoho National Park, which borders Banff National Park to the west. This national park is the world's third oldest national park system, Banff. 1885, Canada's first. Canada today has over 30 national parks.
We have the services of the Brewster Tour Company while in Banff and our driver guide Ben, who times our arrival at Lake Minnewanka just right so that we can catch the boat and get out on the lake for a beautiful cruise.
This is Dennis Kellen for Hawaii Geographic Society on Lake Minnewanka in Banff National Park, Canada. One of the activities that you can enjoy while you're at Banff is a boat ride on Lake Minnewanka. It's an hour-and-a-half ride. It'll cost you about $26 Canadian, which comes to about $17 American. And it's well worth it. You get to see the surrounding mountains. And we go right to the very edge of the Rockies. The eastern edge of the Rockies is at the Devil's Gap. So it's very much getting into the heart of nature. We're getting away from the highways and from the gas stations and from the stores. There's no people around here at all. See, it's all just mountains and the lake itself. It's a spectacular lake because it's about 18 miles long and as deep as 400 feet. The boat is very comfortable. You can sit outdoors or you can sit indoors. And the boats leave every hour or so during the season. Lake Minnewanka is only about a 20-minute drive from the town of Banff, so it's very convenient to get here. Nice activity while you're visiting Banff.
A little chilly. Yeah, it's very cold. Our surface temperature sits at about 37, 38 degrees Fahrenheit, about 4 or 5 degrees Celsius. And once you get down a few feet, the temperature drops as well to just a bit above freezing. You won't see anybody out here water skiing, windsurfing, swimming.
We did spot some wildlife along the shores of the lake. Here's a couple of deer, and in a moment we're going to show you an eagle. That was kind of fun. Lake Minnewanka is the largest lake in Banff National Park. Actually, it's an artificial lake. It was created by a dam in the early 20th century to create electricity for the town of Banff itself. There goes this eagle. That's a rare sight for us to see in the wilds. Beautiful, stunning large bird of prey. There were originally several small natural lakes on the site of Minnewanka, but they were covered up in 1912 when the first dam was built, and then a second larger dam was built in 1941 that made the lake even bigger. A nice way to spend an hour and a half. Nearby we stopped at another very scenic little lake. It's Johnston Lake. This has become a very popular picnic spot and also the local swimming hole for Banff. It's a little lake. You could walk around it in an hour. Lake Johnston is a very nice stroll. You can see here the lake shore is quite level and there's a nice path that goes around it. Good place to practice your kayaking. And yes, they even have a little sandy beach. The water here is quite cold. You probably wouldn't want to go for a swim. But the lake is ideally sized for an afternoon or a morning hike. It just takes about 1 hour to walk all the way around it, just over a mile, and you're rewarded with this rich scenery in all directions. It's an easy drive from the Banff town site, just 20 minutes away, and there's plenty of parking for your car, so there's no problem getting access to Johnston Lake. And then once you're here, if you want, you could just relax by the lake shore, enjoy some of the different views, or you can walk all the way around it. Now, if you're just going to take a short stroll, you might go to the left. In this case, we started out walking around to the right side into the wooded terrain. But if you went around to the left side, you'd come across a nice little stream inlet, and that makes for a nice diversion in your afternoon stroll. We're walking through this forest in the cool shade, and then we come out of the forest and into the sunny side of the lake. And in this case, now we're walking right into the sun. And on this sunny side, there are hardly any trees for cover and shade, which made me think maybe we should have started out walking around in the other direction with the sun at our back to begin with on the sunny side, and then we could walk through the shade coming around, which led to a new principle. If a lake is sunny on one side, walk around it in a direction so the sun shines on your back. You see the sun in the face, it's better to have the sun on your back. If you're out walking, and if you're given that choice, if you see a terrain and you're going to walk around a circle of a lake, and you see that one side is sunny and the other side is in the shade, well, do it so that the sunny side, if possible, has the sun on your back. Much more comfortable that way. People do swim in this lake. They must be Canadians used to the cold water. Here's the little stream inlet that we mentioned earlier. It's a beautiful spot. It's a mix of a marshy wetland and a little stream, and it's the edge of the lake itself and a little mini pond at the side of the lake. And it's easier to get here, again, if you go from the parking lot and take a left walking around the lake. You'll be at this charming area in just 5 or 10 minutes from your car, rather than walking all the way around the lake as we've just done. Although if you'd like to do lake stroll, Lake Johnston is an ideal spot to do it and enjoy another scenic splendor in the Canadian Rockies. Johnston Lake is connected to Lake Minnewanka.
Yeah, really.
Here's Big Brother, and Little Brother has to go get the fishing hook that was stuck on a rock. Isn't it the case? We took several other strolls nearby and enjoyed the views, and then it's time to get back on the bus and continue our journey with our driver, Ben. We came across another flock of bighorn sheep. They're pretty common in the area around Lake Minnewanka and Johnston Lake. Another very interesting site is that of Bankhead. It's a ghost town. Bankhead was created back in 1905 to mine coal, and here you see some of the exhibits that are still on display at the Bankhead area. Coal dust. It was a very rich load of anthracite coal, and they had this little narrow gauge railway to bring the coal out of the mountain. They'd actually tunneled inside the mountain and mined this coal for about 20 years, from 1905 to 1922. Here we are, Canada by train,
All aboard.
in our little narrow gauge coal railroad. Historical photographs show you what a thriving town Bankhead was back in the early 1900s. It was actually a bigger town than Banff, and it was the most modern town in Alberta at the time. And now it's just an abandoned ghost town. It's so easy to sit back and relax on the bus and let the driver describe where we're going and take us right there. This time we're going to Johnston Canyon. This trail is quite remarkable because it's so easy and it's so beautiful. And this is one of the most famous of the hikes. It's on the way from Banff to Lake Louise, so you want to be sure to take the smaller road rather than the main highway from Banff to Lake Louise, and it'll bring you right past Johnston Canyon. Look at this trail. And you can see what an easy walk it is. The trail is paved in asphalt for part of the way, and it is smooth and level, and they've done an amazing job here putting in an ingenious catwalk system. It's cantilevered out over the canyon. There's no way you could walk up here without the catwalk. But because of this, it's like a suspended bridge. You can walk along in the very narrow precipice of this canyon. In some places, the canyon is only about 20 yards wide, and it's about 100 feet high. So you get this tremendous feeling that you're deep down in a gorge. It's the most visited canyon, and it has the friendliest chipmunks. More people visit Johnston Canyon than any other canyon in the Canadian Rockies. And the reason is that its scenic splendor is easily accessible. And it's a short walk. The round trip from your car to the waterfalls and then back to your car is just 1.5 miles. So you can easily do this in 45 minutes, taking your time, taking your pictures, enjoying the little chipmunks. Bring some food for them if you like. It's just a 1/2 mile walk into the waterfall. And notice how the trail has been built along the side of a cliff. It's really remarkable. It's cantilevered out so that we have a very easy walkway through this tunnel of a canyon. It's a remarkable spot. The canyon in some places is only 20 feet wide and about 100 feet high. So even though it's a small canyon, you get this feeling that you're walking through a slash in the earth. And then the payoff is getting to this magnificent waterfall. You could keep going another hour to an upper waterfall, but this was spectacular enough for us. A little wet.
I like rivers, so I really do.
Yeah. And there's even a tunnel that you can walk into that will bring you right face to face with the falls itself. This is only the first falls. There's several others further up the trail if you'd like to make a half-day trip out of it. We didn't have the time, so we just went to the first falls like 98% of the people who come up Johnston Canyon. We had a look, took our pictures, and then you walk back the same way, which gives you yet another opportunity to enjoy the spectacular sight. The trail is so easy. It's quite level and very safe with the walkways. You go under this overhanging cliff at one point. That's really spectacular. The entire round trip is just over 1 mile, so it's a very easy 1-hour nature hike. And there's comfort facilities and gift shops at the end of the trail as well. Delightful limestone canyon. It's 350 million years old. An easy hike that we all enjoyed. It's probably better to come here earlier in the morning or later in the afternoon to avoid the crowds. Those catwalks are a little narrow and you can have some congestion on them. The lighting for photography is best in the afternoon, for there the sunlight reaches the canyon bottom. And how was that?
Oh, outstanding. Fun.
It's worth the walk, really.
Every minute of it.
Back on the bus, we're continuing further into the heart of the Canadian Rockies. We've just crossed over the Continental Divide and entered into Yoho National Park, where we find Emerald Lake. It's the largest lake in Yoho Park. The rich green color comes from the glacial debris that's suspended in the water, and it actually changes color from one part of the year to the next as the silt comes in fresh and then settles to the bottom. The lake is frozen for over half the year, so you probably don't want to come here in the wintertime. It's just too cold. But the summer's ideal. Even in July, when we're planning to travel, the temperatures here are very moderate. You'll find that you'll have temperatures in the upper 60s and lower 70s all throughout the summer. Here too there's a trail that goes around the lake, or you can just do some fishing, or sit at the lodge and have a drink and look at the great scenery. You don't have to exert yourself at all if you don't want, but if you would like a little workout, it's an easy trail. It's 3.2 miles, takes you all the way around the lake, and only takes about 2 hours. It's rated as a moderate hike. It's quite level all the way. You see there's a lodge here with a fancy dining room, nice cabins to stay in. The original hotel at Emerald Lake was built by the Canadian Pacific Railway way back at the turn of the century. But that burned down and it was replaced in the 1980s by this very modern and yet rustic facility. You can come by and rent a canoe and go for a little paddle for a half an hour or an hour. Very reasonable rates here for the facilities. And of course, there's always more squirrels and chipmunks. You might even see some elk and moose in this area. Great family outing, Emerald Lake. Another stunning jewel. There's a beautiful lakeside trail that goes around the lake. It's about a 3-mile walk, and it's one of the most rewarding of all the nature hikes in the Canadian Rockies. Emerald Lake also has a lodge that you could spend the night at and a nice restaurant. Castle Mountain is a good example of a layered mountain. You can see the horizontal lines in the face of the cliff. Some elk browsing nearby in the meadows around the mountain. At 9,000 feet, Castle is high, but there's 1,000 peaks higher in the Canadian Rockies. That wraps up another episode of World Traveler.